I froze halfway down the wooden steps of my son's porch, the mug of coffee trembling in my hand. The morning air smelled like wet grass and burning leaves from a neighbor's fire pit. I had been looking for a quiet spot to breathe before church, but instead I found myself standing at the edge of a storm. Below me, near the flower bed I planted myself last spring, my daughter-in-law's voice cut through the rustling wind. "We can't keep him here forever, Marcus. It's time we do something. He's in the way." My own name wasn't spoken, but I knew. Every word was a hammer swung at my chest. I stepped back, almost spilling the coffee. The porch creaked under my weight. At 58, I'm not the kind of man who startles easily. My name is Clarence Whitmore, and for most of my life people have called me steady. Steady hands, steady job, steady temper. Yet in that moment I felt like a child again, unwanted, eavesdropping on a conversation not meant for me. My daughter-in-law, Amanda, had her back to me, her blonde hair tied tight like she was going into battle. My son Marcus stood near the grill, shoulders hunched, silent, staring at the ground. For a heartbeat I thought maybe I misheard, that the hiss of the sprinklers distorted their words. But then Amanda said it clearer, softer, like a secret prayer. "We need to get rid of him before he ruins everything." I didn't know what everything meant. All I knew was the sting of betrayal on a Sunday morning, the mug still warm in my shaking hands, and my son's silence. I'll pause here to invite you, yes, you watching this story unfold on your screen, to tell me where you're from, what city, what state. Comment down below while you're here, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you can follow the rest of my story, because what happened next changed my life in a way I never expected. Back to that moment, I turned, careful not to make the porch creak again, and went back inside. My heart was drumming against my ribs and mine, but I moved slow, deliberate, the way I did back when I was a school principal, breaking up fights without raising my voice. In the kitchen, the clock above the stove ticked loud. I stared at it like it might give me answers. 7:46 and my church started in an hour, but my faith felt like a cracked pane of glass. Amanda had been married to my son for 12 years. I'd welcomed her like a daughter. When Marcus went through law school, I helped pay his rent. When Amanda's mother died, I cooked for her for a week straight. I was supposed to be family, and yet now, after my retirement and the sale of my house, living in their guest room had become, what? A burden? An obstacle? Something to get rid of? I remember gripping the edge of the countertop so hard my knuckles went white. Looking back now, it was the exact second when revenge started breathing inside me. Not the wild, shouting kind of revenge. The quiet, dignified kind that takes root like an oak tree. Later that morning at church, I sat between them as if nothing had happened. Amanda's perfume smelled of vanilla and sugar. Marcus bowed his head during the hymns. My own voice was a whisper. I kept thinking about the word ruins. What could I ruin? Their marriage, their plans, their money. They had no children, no debts I knew of. The mystery was almost worse than the insult. After service, Amanda smiled at me in front of Pastor Green. "Clarence, we're making your favorite roast tonight. Don't be late." Her eyes flickered just a second too long, like she wanted me to see something behind them. I smiled back. Wouldn't miss it. At home that afternoon I began to observe. A retired principal still knows how to gather facts. Marcus spent more hours at work than ever, sometimes not coming home until after midnight. Amanda took calls in the backyard, pacing like a lawyer prepping for trial. I started keeping a notebook, dates, times, snippets of phrases. It made me feel steadier. One evening, I found an empty wine bottle in the recycling bin labeled with a vineyard from Napa. Expensive. They hadn't traveled anywhere. A gift? A bribe? I didn't know. That night, while they were out, I walked through the kitchen quietly, noticing small changes. Amanda had moved my medications from the cabinet to a drawer. My toothbrush was gone from the bathroom counter. My favorite mug was in the garage, near the donation boxes. They were erasing me in pieces. I almost confronted Marcus right then. Almost. But what I did instead shocked even me. I began to plan. I didn't shout. I didn't pack my bags. I didn't even hint. Instead, I started asking gentle questions. "Amanda, how's work? Marcus, how's the firm treating you?" Meanwhile, I called an old friend from my school days, Bernard, now a private investigator. Bernard owed me a favor. Within a week, Bernard handed me a folder thick with photos and receipts. Amanda had been siphoning money from Marcus's accounts into an offshore account. She had also been meeting a man at a hotel near the airport twice a month. The man wasn't a lover, he was a broker. And the money, from the sale of my old house, the house I had sold and placed the funds in a joint account under Marcus's name to help them buy their dream place. Amanda had taken it, all of it. I stared at the documents on my bed. For a moment, my breath left me. Then, like a second sunrise, calm returned. She didn't just want to get rid of me. She wanted to erase the evidence of what she had already done. From that point on, everything I did was deliberate. I started playing the part of the tired old man she already believed I was, misplacing my glasses, napping in the recliner, smiling vaguely at her as she spoke. Inside, my mind was sharper than ever. One rainy Thursday, I walked out to the porch while Amanda was on another of her phone calls. "I'll handle him. Marcus trusts me." She didn't see me watching. Marcus was at work again. The pieces fit together like a puzzle. Get rid of me, keep the money, leave Marcus with nothing but her control. That night, Marcus came home late, soaked from the rain. I was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee. He looked startled. "Dad, you're still up?" "I wanted to talk," I said. He hesitated, glancing toward the hallway where Amanda slept. "Is it about her?" I took a slow sip of coffee, then set the mug down. "Son, it's about us." His eyes flickered. Something in him knew, but I didn't speak then. Not yet, because what I had planned required timing, precision, and a kind of patience that only age can teach. And as I sat there, watching the rain bead on his coat, I realized how much my life had trained me for this moment. Decades of discipline, of listening more than speaking, of holding my dignity when others tried to take it. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to teach Amanda, and maybe Marcus too, a lesson about underestimating a man who built his life on quiet strength. What I didn't know yet was how dangerous Amanda could become when cornered. I didn't sleep that night. The rain kept hitting the window like a soft, steady tapping, the kind that usually comforts me, but not that night. That night, it felt like a warning. I sat in the dark and listened to the house breathe. Every creak of the floorboards, every shift of the pipes, sounded like Amanda's voice whispering, "He's in the way." It's funny how betrayal sharpens your senses. You start to notice things you ignored before. The tone of a "good morning," the way someone's eyes linger a little too long on what used to be yours. At sunrise, I brewed a pot of coffee and waited for Marcus to come down. When he did, he looked worn out, his tie hanging loose, his face pale from too many late nights. He smiled when he saw me, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, son." We sat across from each other, the silence stretching between us like a rope. I almost told him everything right then, slid the folder across the table, exposed Amanda's deceit, and freed him. But something held me back, an instinct that told me Marcus wasn't ready to hear it yet. People don't accept truth when they're still in love with the lie. Instead, I asked casually, "How's the firm treating you?" He sighed. "Busy. I've been trying to close a new client, but things are complicated." "Complicated how?" He hesitated. "Amanda's been helping with the finances. She's better with numbers than I am." There it was, the twist of the knife, hidden behind politeness. I smiled faintly, sipping my coffee. "That's good. Always nice to have someone who's good with money." He nodded, not catching the meaning behind my words. When he left for work, I watched his car pull out of the driveway, my mind turning gears quietly. That afternoon, I went into town. I wore my old tweed jacket and my felt hat, the same one I used to wear when visiting parents at the school, the kind of hat that makes people underestimate you. I stopped by my bank first, confirming what Bernard had already told me. The transfer from my old house's sale was gone, completely drained 2 months ago. The clerk, a young woman with a nervous smile, couldn't meet my eyes when she said it. From there, I walked to the diner where I used to take Marcus as a boy. The waitress, Marlene, still worked there. She'd aged, like we all do, but she remembered me. "Clarence Whitmore. Well, I'll be damned. Haven't seen you in years." We chatted for a while. She poured me coffee without asking. I asked about her grandkids. She asked about mine. I said I didn't have any yet, and she frowned. "Marcus and Amanda still trying?" "Something like that," I said, smiling. But what I was really doing was building my own kind of network, reminding people I existed. Because when you're planning revenge, the first rule is to make sure others remember your face, your kindness, your history. It makes the truth harder to bury later. That night, Amanda cooked dinner, my supposed favorite roast again. The smell filled the house, rich and sweet, but all I could think of was poison. I watched her closely. She smiled too easily, talked too loud. Marcus looked exhausted, pushing food around his plate. At one point she touched his hand and said, "You know, honey, your dad should really consider moving somewhere with more support, maybe one of those senior living communities." I didn't flinch. Marcus frowned slightly. "Amanda, we've talked about this." She laughed it off. "I'm just saying, it might be better for him. All that space, New friends, activities. I met her eyes across the table. You're right, I said softly. Maybe I should start looking into places that take care of people when their families can't. She froze for half a second, then smiled again, brittle and thin. Marcus looked between us, uneasy. Can we just eat? I nodded. Of course. After dinner, when they went to bed, I walked out onto the back porch again. The night was still, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked soil. I sat in the same chair where I had overheard her plotting. It was almost poetic, how the same space could hold both betrayal and revelation. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small flash drive Bernard had given me. On it were recordings, Amanda's calls with the broker, emails about the offshore transfers, even a video of her meeting the man in a hotel lobby, proof enough to ruin her if used right. But I didn't want to just ruin her. I wanted her to understand what she had done, to feel the slow, creeping weight of her own trap. The next day I called Pastor Green. I told him I'd been feeling uneasy and asked if he could come by for lunch that Sunday. Amanda adored him and would never refuse his visit. That was part of the plan. Over the next few days, I acted like nothing had happened. I even laughed at Amanda's jokes, helped her carry groceries, and mowed the lawn. Every gesture was deliberate, a performance of harmlessness. But beneath it, I was building something meticulous. In my room, I started writing letters. One for Marcus, one for Pastor Green, one for the police chief I'd known back when he was a kid I expelled for fighting. Each letter explained what Amanda had done. With copies of the documents enclosed, I sealed them, labeled them, and hid them inside a shoebox beneath my bed, because part of me didn't trust how this would end. Then, on Friday evening, a curious thing happened. Amanda knocked on my door. "Clarence, you got a minute?" I looked up from my book. Of course. She stepped inside, holding a cup of tea. "I made chamomile. Thought you might like some." Her voice was honey, but her eyes were ice. "Thank you," I said, taking the cup but not drinking it. She leaned against the doorframe. "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" "Never better," I said, smiling faintly. She studied me for a long moment, then said, "Marcus worries about you. You know, he says you've been acting strange." "That so?" "Yes." She tilted her head. "Maybe you should see someone. A doctor. Sometimes aging minds can get paranoid." I laughed softly, setting the cup down. "Amanda, I spent 40 years dealing with teenagers who thought they were smarter than me. You're going to have to try harder." Her smile faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned forward just enough for her to feel the weight of my calm. "It means I know, Amanda, and you should be very careful about how you proceed from here." For the first time, I saw fear flash in her eyes. Just a flicker, but it was there. She turned without another word and left, closing the door a little too hard behind her. I didn't touch the tea. That night, Marcus didn't come home until nearly 2 a.m. I heard them arguing downstairs, voices low at first, then louder. Amanda's tone sharp, Marcus defensive. I couldn't make out the words, but the rhythm told me everything. The foundation was cracking, and in that moment, I almost felt pity for her. Almost. But pity is a luxury you can't afford when someone's trying to erase you. The next morning, she was all smiles again, made pancakes, kissed Marcus goodbye, and hummed as she cleaned. That kind of calm only comes when a person decides on something final. I watched from the hallway as she placed a new bottle of medication on the counter, something I hadn't seen before. "What's that?" I asked. "Oh," she said lightly. "The doctor switched your prescription, said this one would help you sleep better." I picked up the bottle, reading the label. My name was on it, but the dosage looked wrong. "Did Marcus pick this up?" I asked. She smiled. "No, I did. Just trust me, Clarence." "I do," I said, completely. But that was the moment I decided the time for silence was over. Sunday came. Pastor Green arrived right on time, his booming laugh filling the kitchen as Amanda fluttered around, pretending to be the perfect hostess. Marcus looked pale and distant, avoiding my eyes. After lunch, I said, "Pastor, would you bless the house? Just a short prayer. It's been a while since we had one." He nodded warmly. "Of course, Brother Clarence." We all gathered in the living room. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, soft and golden. Amanda stood beside Marcus, holding his hand tightly. When Pastor Green closed his eyes and began to pray, I slipped the flash drive from my pocket and placed it on the coffee table. When the prayer ended, I spoke calmly. "Before we go, there's something I'd like to share. A little truth that's been hiding under our roof." Amanda stiffened. Marcus looked confused. "What's this?" he asked. I gestured to the drive. "Evidence of betrayal, of theft, of deceit." I turned to Amanda. "You've been very busy behind my back, but you forgot that wisdom doesn't retire." Marcus frowned. "Dad, what are you talking about?" Amanda tried to laugh. but her voice cracked. He's delusional. He thinks. I cut her off. Enough. I looked straight at Marcus. Son, you need to see this for yourself. Bernard helped me collect it. Everything you need to know about where our money went and who's been lying to you. Amanda reached for the drive, but Pastor Green stepped forward and took it first. I think I'll hold on to this for now, he said gently. The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus stared at his wife, searching her face for denial, for explanation, but Amanda said nothing. Her mouth opened once, then closed. That's when I decided to leave the room. I didn't want to see her lie again. I went out to the porch and sat in my chair, watching the wind move through the trees. My heart wasn't racing. It was calm, steady, like it used to be. Behind me, voices rose. Marcus shouting, Amanda crying, Pastor Green trying to keep peace. I didn't move. Some truths don't need witnesses. They just need air. But even then, I knew this wasn't over. Amanda wasn't the kind of woman to surrender. Not easily. And I was right. Because 2 nights later, I woke to the smell of smoke. The smoke alarm didn't scream the way it does in movies. It chirped at first, an apologetic little bird, before it realized it had to be serious and started wailing. I woke with my throat raw and my eyes stinging. For a second, I thought I was back in my old school gym, the one with the faulty boiler that used to belch steam in winter. Then the sting sharpened into panic. I swung my legs out of bed, feet finding my slippers by muscle memory, and opened the door. A fist of gray smoke drifted down the hall. The light above the staircase pulsed weakly, carving a tunnel through the haze. Somewhere downstairs something popped, wood finding a new shape in the heat. Amanda? Marcus? I called, voice rasping. No answer. I took the stairs slow, one hand on the rail, counting like I taught kids to do in fire drills. 2 steps to a breath. At the landing, I saw the flicker. Not big, not roaring. A mean little tongue of flame licking the edge of a dish towel tied to the oven handle. The towel was blackening, the edge a bright, hungry orange. I moved without thinking, grabbed the fire extinguisher under the sink, because I'm the kind of man who keeps an extinguisher under the sink, and pulled the pin. The white spray whooshed out like a winter storm. The towel died. The orange starved. I hit the stovetop, the wall, the cabinet lip, sweeping like they taught us back when the school district finally coughed up money for safety training. When the noise faded, the silence felt heavier than the smoke. Amanda appeared in the doorway from the garage, clutching a hand towel over her mouth and nose, eyes wide, hair braided up like she'd been getting ready for bed. Clarence, are you okay? What happened? I was about to ask you, I said, voice low. Kitchen tried to kill us. She coughed, looking past me to the oven. I must have left the stove on while I was making tea. I am so sorry. The kettle sat on the back burner, not a scratch on it. The front burner had the blue knob turned just past medium. A dish towel doesn't walk itself into a flame. It doesn't tie itself to a handle and dangle within kissing distance of a burner you didn't use. Behind her, I heard a car door. Marcus hurried in, jacket flapping, hair damp from night air. I got your text, he said to Amanda, breathing hard. Fire. Dad, you okay? I'm fine, I said. Kitchen's not. He looked at the stove, then at his wife, then at me. His mouth opened, then closed. He reached for me and squeezed my shoulder. Awkward, too quick, and stepped away. We should, open the windows, he said. We did. The alarm settled back into quiet. The house exhaled. We stood there for a long minute. 3 statues in a room that smelled like a campfire had been stuffed into a glove box. Amanda's eyes glimmered. A tear fell, leaving a clean track on her sooty cheek. She's a good actress when she's cornered, better than I gave her credit for. I'm just glad you're safe, she whispered. I am too, I said, and I'd like to know why. She blinked. What? Why the front burner was on when the kettle's sitting on the back burner, I said gently, like a teacher putting a worksheet on the desk of a child who's about to lie. Her throat worked. I must have mixed them up. Must have, I repeated. Marcus rubbed his face. Nobody's thinking straight. It's a mistake. We're all tired. He wanted it to be a mistake so badly I could hear the want rattling around his ribs. I'll call the fire department, I said. Amanda flinched. Is that necessary? Absolutely, I said, and took my phone out. If this was an accident, we'll be safer after they've taken a look. If it wasn't, I want a record. She went very still. That's the thing about stillness. Guilty people wear it like an ill-fitting coat. Innocent people fidget. Guilty people freeze. The truck arrived fast. Small town, late hour, bored firefighters grateful for something to do besides reorganize shelves and lose at cards. The chief, a guy named Rizzo who used to date Marlene's niece, walked me through what he saw. He was careful, The way people get around older men they respect but don't quite know. Looks like ignition happened here, he said, pointing with a gloved finger to a soot-freckled spot, a perfect little flower. Accelerant, hard to tell without residue analysis. But the towel's weird. He squinted at the knot where the towel had been tied to the handle, now stiff with extinguisher foam. People don't do that on accident. Amanda crossed her arms. So now a towel is a conspiracy. Rizzo glanced at her and then at me. He started a report, took some photos with his phone, bagged the towel. We'll send it to the lab, he said. Standard. Thank you, I said. Please send a copy to the police chief and to me. Amanda smiled tightly. Why on earth the police? Because a towel may not be a conspiracy, Amanda, I said softly. But arson is a crime. Marcus's mouth opened again. No sound came out. He looked like a man trying to hold two maps of the same town in his head and realizing the streets don't line up. They left. The house calmed. And for the second time in a week, I sat in a kitchen still humming with aftershock and felt something ancient in me settle. Not anger, not triumph. More like a ledger being opened. Left side, what was taken. Right side, what will be returned. I almost stopped there. Almost. But what I did instead shocked even me. I went to bed, slid the shoebox with the letters a little farther back under the frame, and slept with the window open so the cool air could rinse the last of the smoke from my lungs. In the morning, I made pancakes. I whistled. I put on the jazz station. Low, Ella Fitzgerald crooning like a promise. Into each life some rain must fall. At breakfast, I poured coffee for everyone. I need to run some errands, I said. Be back before dinner. Amanda's smile was all teeth. Take your time. I visited 3 places. First, the pharmacy. A bell over the door rang, and the pharmacist, short, solid man named Patel, looked up and nodded. I'd known his father back when I taught. Mr. Whitmore, he said, already pulling a bag from the pickup shelf. Your refill. Before I take that, I said, I'd like to know who changed my prescription. He frowned, checked the computer. His finger hovered over the screen. This came in online 3 days ago, from Dr. Halpern's office. Strange, I said, because Dr. Halpern retired 2 years back. Patel froze. Screen glow reflected in his glasses. He cleared his throat. The system says Halpern, but the note field mentions a nurse Amanda Whitmore. Nurse? I smiled. Amanda is not a nurse. He swallowed. Mr. Whitmore, would you like me to call the number on file? I'd like you to print everything, I said kindly, and hold my refill for now. He did. I thanked him, then sat in my car and stared at the paper. The dosage was triple, enough to make a healthy man foggy, enough to make a tired man fall, enough to make a fire seem like an accident. Second stop, the firehouse. Rizzo wasn't there, but a young firefighter named Celeste was, freckles and a serious mouth. The chief started your report, she said. We'll call you when the lab gets back to us. Appreciate you, I said. And Celeste, please note that I'm requesting the state fire marshal be notified. Her eyebrows climbed. That escalates it. Yes, I said. So did the towel. Third stop, the police station. The chief, old student of mine named Lyle, met me with a hug that startled us both. He was taller than he used to be, somehow wider and narrower at once, like a man molded by fluorescent lights and municipal coffee. You look good, Mr. Whitmore, he said. Heard about the kitchen. You okay? I am, I said. I want you to hold on to this. I slid him an envelope. Evidence of theft, another of attempted medical fraud, and the name of the pharmacist who can verify. Lyle didn't open it. He just nodded. You always were the only person who made me read the whole question before I answered. Still am, I said. We talked in his office for 10 minutes. He wrote more than he spoke. When we were done, he put the envelope in a safe and looked me in the eye. You want to press charges? Not yet, I said. I want the truth to ripen first. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. On the way home, I stopped at the hardware store, a place that smelled like sawdust and new ideas. I bought 2 new smoke detectors, a carbon monoxide alarm, and a small camera that looked like a black button. The cashier, a college kid whose name tag said Brysa, rang me up and told me his grandfather still talks about my graduation speeches from 20 years back. You said something like where character is what your voice sounds like when nobody's listening. Close enough, I said, and smiled. Back at the house, I cooked. Food is a sermon when you put love into it. I made red beans and rice, cornbread with honey butter, collard greens with a splash of apple cider vinegar. The smell filled the rooms and displaced whatever smoke still clung to corners. While the beans simmered, I installed the detectors and placed the camera in the corner of the kitchen where the ceiling met the cabinets, staring down at the stove like a patient owl. I knew the law enough to know that recording in a common area of your own home was fine. I knew enough to make sure the little eye could see the knobs. When Marcus got home, he paused in the doorway and closed his eyes. "Smells like the house I grew up in," he said. I gestured to the table. "Sit, eat." He did. We ate mostly in silence, the way tired men do when the food is good enough that words would just get in the way. Halfway through his second bowl, he put his spoon down with a soft clink. "Dad," he said, "about the other day, about the drive." "I know," I said. "You watched it." He swallowed. "I watched it. And," he pressed his lips together, "Amanda says it's out of context." I breathed in, counted 3, breathed out. "Does context explain where the money went?" He flinched. "She says it's temporary, that it's investment positioning, that she was protecting me from myself." "Is that what you believe?" I asked, gentle as I could be. He stared at his bowl. "I don't know what I believe." I reached across the table and put my hand over his. His skin was cold. He didn't pull away. "You will," I said. "Just don't take any pills with my name on them." His eyes snapped to mine. "What?" I told him about the pharmacy, Patel, the dosage, the retired doctor. He closed his eyes and sat back hard, chair complaining. When he opened them again, something in him had moved from the maybe column to a new place entirely. Not conviction yet, but not denial either. "She wouldn't," he started, then stopped. He pinched the bridge of his nose the way he did when he had a headache as a boy. "Dad, I'm so sorry." "This isn't about sorry," I said. "Getting well, as a family or as individuals if that's what it takes." He nodded. He finished his bowl. He washed his dishes. He went upstairs. I waited. The camera watched. The house listened. Around 9, Amanda came home. She was wearing a white blouse and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She kissed Marcus's cheek, a little too hard, like she wanted her lips to leave a mark. Then she came into the kitchen and opened cabinets aimlessly, the way people do when they don't know what to do with their hands. "How was your day?" she asked me. "Productive," I said. "Mine too," she said. "I made an appointment for you at a memory clinic. They help with paranoia, early signs." She poured herself wine, the expensive kind with the vineyard label. Her fingers trembled just a hair. "We'll get you help." "That's thoughtful," I said. "I already saw a professional today. He said I'm as clear as a bell." She blinked. "Who?" "The police chief." Silence. Then a laugh. Brittle. "You think this is funny?" "I think this is the part where you choose who you want to be," I said softly. "The woman who made a mistake and tells the truth, or the woman who keeps digging." Her jaw tightened. "You are not going to ruin my marriage." "I don't have to," I said. "You're doing that yourself." She took her wine and left without another word. That night, I slept with my phone under my pillow, not because I was afraid, because I was ready. The next morning, I took a walk down to the farmer's market by the church parking lot. The old men lined up on the bench outside, drinking coffee from paper cups, arguing about the high school football team like the world depended on a decent pass rush. They greeted me by name. That matters. It's harder to erase a man strangers will vouch for. On my way back, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered, "This is Clarence." "Mr. Whitmore, this is Celeste from the firehouse. Chief Rizzo asked me to call. Preliminary lab says there was a petroleum distillate on the towel. Lighter fluid, most likely." I stopped walking. The morning light felt suddenly surgical. "Thank you, Celeste. Do you want us to notify the marshal now?" "Yes," I said. "And the police chief is expecting your report." I hung up. I stood in the sunshine and watched the wind bend the flag in front of the post office. To a passerby, I probably looked like an old man catching his breath. Inside, I was laying rails for a train that would arrive on time. When I got home, an envelope sat on the doormat, thick, with a green certified mail sticker. Marcus had left early. Amanda's car was in the driveway. I picked up the envelope, turned it over. The return address belonged to a bank in the Cayman Islands. I opened it at the kitchen table. Inside, there was a statement and a polite letter addressed to Mrs. Amanda Whitmore, confirming wire instructions and the establishment of a new sub-account under a shell company name that felt like a dare, Evergreen Dignity Holdings. I smiled, a small, unhappy smile. People tell you who they are when they name things. Dignity is a word you borrow when you've misplaced your own. Amanda walked in and froze when she saw what I was reading. Her breath hitched, that little skip a person does before their lie catches up with their pulse. "Mail came," I said. She reached for it. "That's mine." I held it just out of reach. "It is, and I suspect the contents inside what you've built are mine too." She stared at me. Her eyes were bright and cruel. "You sold your house because you couldn't keep up with it, Clarence. You wanted to feel useful. You gave the money to Marcus. I did, I said, because I was investing in my son's future, not in this. She tilted her head. You don't get to decide what your gift becomes after you give it. That would be true, I said, and here I couldn't help it. I let the teacher step to the front of the room. If this was a gift, it wasn't. It was a contribution to a joint purchase with my name on the ledger. That makes it traceable, which makes it recoverable. She flinched, a small one. You're bluffing. I'm notarizing. She laughed, but it sounded tired. You think paperwork will save you? I think paperwork is how civilized people fight, I said. Before she could answer, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Lyle, the police chief, and beside him a woman with a clipboard from the state fire marshal's office. Lyle took off his cap. Mr. Whitmore, Miss Whitmore, we're here to ask a few questions. Amanda's face went pale and then flushed so fast it looked like a time-lapse of a sunrise. This is ridiculous. Clarence, tell them. I will, I said, and stepped aside. They walked in. The marshal, Ms. Avery, mid-40s, sharp eyes, soft voice, asked to see the stove, the towel, the layout. Amanda performed outrage like it was a recital she'd memorized. I just answered questions plainly. When they were done, Ms. Avery said, we'll be in touch. Lyle lingered. He cleared his throat. This also came for you, he said to me, handing over a small package. From Pastor Green. I opened it. Inside was a USB drive and a note in the pastor's neat hand. 2 copies made, one with me, one with Lyle. Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Gee, I felt a swell of something in my chest that was almost laughter and almost tears. Community is a net you don't know you're carrying until you fall, and it catches you. Amanda watched me read the note. Her mouth thinned. You think you've got an army, old man? I think I've got a church and a town, I said. Army enough. She stormed upstairs. The bedroom door slammed. A moment later, a drawer opened and closed hard. Then another. People pack when they're cornered, or they throw things away. I let her alone. Instead, I called a lawyer, not one from Marcus's firm, a woman named Hannah Corder who specialized in elder financial abuse and complex asset recovery. She'd represented a friend of mine a few years back and done it with a grace that felt like medicine. I told her the story. I didn't dramatize. I didn't need to. Mr. Whitmore, she said when I finished, I can file for an emergency injunction on any accounts that appear to be holding your funds. We'll need affidavits, the PI's report, pharmacy printouts, and the fire marshal's preliminary. If we can show a pattern of coercive control and attempted harm, we can move fast. How fast? Today, she said. But it will explode your household. It already exploded, I said. I'm just taking pictures of the damage. I met her at her office 2 hours later. She wore a blue dress and a look that said she had run out of patience for people who mistake kindness for weakness. We signed papers. She had a notary in the next room. By late afternoon, petitions were filed, notices out, a judge's signature on a temporary freeze like a frost that would halt a spreading weed. On my way back, I stopped at the diner. Marlene poured me coffee without asking. Heard sirens by your way last night, she said. You doing all right? I am, I said. And then, because it felt like a blessing to say it out loud, I'm not alone. She topped off my cup. You never were. When I got home, the house was quiet in that way. Houses are when the air itself doesn't want to disturb the fragile thing inside. Marcus sat on the couch, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. Amanda stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the street like she expected the cavalry. Marcus, I said gently, I need to tell you what I did today. He looked up, eyes red. I know, he said. She got a call. The bank. Amanda's voice was small and sharp. You froze my accounts. You had no right. I froze the accounts holding my funds, I said, and the court will decide the rest. She laughed, loud and humorless. You think a judge will listen to an old man's story? I think a judge will listen to numbers, I said, and to the state fire marshal, and to a pharmacist who knows a retired doctor when he sees one on paper. She moved toward me. For a second, I saw it. The part of her that wasn't calculation, the part that was rage. It flared and then vanished behind that white blouse and those tidy braids. You've ruined everything, she said. Not everything, I said, and looked at my son. Not him. She followed my gaze. For a long second, something passed over her face I hadn't seen before. Regret? No. Fear of losing? That's different. It's colder. Marcus stood. He looked at his wife and then at me. I need the truth, he said. Right now. Amanda's jaw tightened. You're choosing him over me. I'm choosing truth, he said. She didn't answer. She went upstairs again. The door closed. The house held its breath. I sat next to my boy. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. He spoke first. She told me last night she wanted to try for a baby, he said, voice flat. Said the timing was finally right. I closed my eyes for a second, not because I was tired, but because the human heart never runs out of ways to surprise me with its cruelty and its hope. I'm sorry, I said. You deserved better. He nodded and wiped his face with the heel of his hand. I did. We sat in quiet until the sun slid away and the room turned blue. I made tea. He didn't drink it. Sometimes not drinking is its own kind of prayer. Near midnight, the camera whispered with motion. I checked the feed, the kitchen, the stove, a hand reaching in from the left edge of the frame. Slender, strong, familiar. The front burner knob turned. A dish towel dragged a few inches along the handle, then stopped, as if reconsidering. The hand withdrew. My phone buzzed. A text from the state fire marshal's office. Formal report ready in the morning. Please be available. I looked at my son. Marcus, I said softly, I need you to see something. He watched the footage on my phone. He didn't speak. When it ended, he didn't look at me. He stood, walked to the staircase, and climbed. I heard the bedroom door open. Voices. Then the voices rose, not loud but sharp enough to slice. I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed with my hands folded like a man about to say grace. I stared at the shoebox under the bed and felt the strangest calm. I thought I was done with surprises, but life had one waiting right around the corner. In the morning, just after 9, there would be a knock on the door. A deputy with a stack of papers, a fire marshal with a folder, a pastor with eyes like a storm, and hidden inside one of those envelopes, a truth I hadn't known could still hurt me. The name on a second account, opened a year ago, into which small deposits had been flowing, steady as a heartbeat, from my son's firm, not Amanda's signature, Marcus's, and that, my friend, is where the line between betrayal and redemption gets drawn with a piece of chalk you can wipe away, or not. The knock came exactly at 9, just like I knew it would. 3 firm taps, authoritative, but not cruel. I'd been sitting in the armchair since sunrise, dressed in my best gray slacks and the white shirt Marcus gave me last Father's Day. The air still carried the faint scent of last night's smoke, mixed with the coffee I'd brewed but barely touched. When I opened the door, the deputy stood there, tall, polite, eyes hidden behind mirrored glasses. Beside him, Ms. Avery from the fire marshal's office held a manila folder. Behind them, Pastor Green waited, hat in hand, his face unreadable. Morning, Mr. Whitmore, the deputy said. We have documents for you and for Mrs. Whitmore. I stepped aside. Come in. Amanda appeared at the top of the stairs in a silk robe, looking like she'd rehearsed calm in front of the mirror. Marcus followed a few steps behind, his face gray and sleepless. Miss Avery opened her folder. The lab confirmed accelerant, petroleum distillate, same as lighter fluid, based on placement and ignition source. This fire was intentional. The origin point was within 18 inches of where the towel was found. The report concludes probable cause for attempted arson. Amanda's voice came sharp. You can't prove I did anything. Miss Avery didn't blink. We can prove someone did. And the towel had traces of a compound similar to the hand lotion found in your bathroom. That will go to the county prosecutor. Amanda's jaw tightened. She turned to Marcus. You're really letting them do this? To me, Marcus didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. The deputy handed her an envelope. You're not under arrest, ma'am, yet, but the DA will review these findings. Amanda snatched the papers, shaking. This is ridiculous. Pastor Green cleared his throat. Amanda, the truth has a way of catching up even when we sprint. She shot him a glare, then looked at me. You think this makes you righteous, Clarence? You think you've won? I met her eyes, calm and steady. This isn't about winning. It's about not disappearing quietly. Her lips trembled, but no tears came. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll be alive to do it. Miss Avery gathered her things, nodded to me, and left. The deputy followed. Pastor Green lingered a moment longer, resting his hand on my shoulder. Hold your peace, brother. The Lord has more chapters to write. When they were gone, silence fell heavy over the living room. Amanda dropped the envelope on the coffee table. I'm leaving, she said flatly. Marcus whispered. Amanda, she turned on him. No, you don't get to say my name like that. Not after what you did. That made me look up. What he did, she laughed, bitter and hollow. Oh, he didn't tell you, did he? Poor Marcus, always playing the saint. I studied my son's face. His eyes darted toward the envelope the deputy left behind, the one marked for Mr. Whitmore's attention only. I had already seen the edge of the bank statement inside. Go on, I said quietly. Say what you need to say. Amanda's voice trembled with fury. He's been moving money, Clarence. Your money. The firm's money. Little bits. Month after month. Guess where it ended up? I said nothing. In my account. She spat. The one you froze. Because your perfect boy set it up that way. Marcus turned pale. Amanda, that's not what? She snapped. Not stealing. You used me, Marcus. You used my name to hide your own mess. He took a step forward, pleading. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, she said. You married me to have a front for your father's charity fund. You wanted to look like the good son while covering your debts. I felt the ground tilt under me. The air seemed to shrink, the walls leaning closer. Debts? I said slowly. What debts? Marcus's voice broke. Dad, I was trying to fix it before you found out. Fix what? He ran a hand through his hair, trembling. When I started at the firm, I took out loans to cover expenses, equipment, travel, things I shouldn't have. Then I got involved with a partner who was laundering client money. I didn't know at first. When it all fell apart, I used part of what you gave me to pay them off. I thought I could replace it before you noticed, but the more I tried to cover it, the deeper I went. Amanda laughed again, sharp and cruel. And you thought I was the monster. He turned on her. You are the monster. You stole the rest. I stood there between them, watching two people I thought I knew dissolve into strangers. My throat felt dry, my heart like glass in a fist. Marcus, I said softly. How long? 3 years, he whispered. The words hit me like cold water. 3 years. That meant before I even moved in, before the house was sold, before Amanda's mask began to slip. The betrayal didn't start with her. It started with him. Amanda folded her arms. You see, Clarence, you raised a liar, not a savior. Marcus's voice cracked. Don't. Enough. My tone was quiet, but both of them froze. It was the voice I'd used when breaking up fights in school hallways. You've both told your stories. Now listen to mine. I walked to the window, looked out at the gray morning, the damp yard, the bird bath half full of rain. When I gave you that money, Marcus, I didn't give it because you needed it. I gave it because I wanted to believe my life's work meant something, that my son's world would start where mine ended, that you'd build something honest. I sold my house, my memories, my peace, for your chance. He started to speak, but I raised a hand. Don't interrupt. Not yet. I turned toward Amanda. And you could have had a family that worshipped you. I opened my home, my table, my heart, and you decided to see me as a threat. You plotted, you lied, you nearly burned me in my sleep. That's a lot of hate for a man who did nothing but love the person you married. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I sat down slowly, feeling the weight of it all press into my bones. So here's what's going to happen. Amanda, you're going to pack your things. The police will follow up with you. Marcus, you're going to meet with my lawyer this afternoon. You'll sign over the remaining equity in this house to me. You'll keep your job, if you can, but you'll do it clean, because I won't spend my last years living under a roof built on lies. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Yes, sir. Amanda's voice turned venomous. You can't throw me out. My name's on the deed. Not anymore, I said, handing her a folder Hannah Corder had prepared. Emergency injunction. Filed yesterday. Your access is frozen until the investigation closes. Her face crumpled for a moment, then hardened again. You'll die alone, Clarence. I smiled faintly. I've lived with worse. She stormed upstairs. Marcus followed, probably to make sure she didn't set the place on fire again. When the door slammed, the silence that followed was different this time. Not tense, but empty, like a classroom after the bell. I sat there, breathing slow, the morning light washing the room in gold. My hands were steady again, my heart strangely light, but something inside me whispered that this wasn't over, because betrayal doesn't end with paperwork, it ends with truth. By evening, Amanda was gone. Marcus helped her load the last suitcase into her car without a word. She didn't look back. Her taillights disappeared down the wet road like two red eyes sinking into fog. I stood at the doorway, watching until the sound of the engine faded. Then Marcus turned to me. I'm sorry, he said again, for everything. Sorry's not enough, I said, but it's a start. He nodded, shoulders slumped. What happens now? Now, I said, we rebuild, but first we tell the truth. To everyone. He hesitated. Everyone. Yes, your firm, your pastor, the people you owe. If you want forgiveness, you have to face the fire head on. He swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay. That night we sat at the kitchen table together, the same table where Amanda had plotted my removal. Only now, the air felt different. He showed me the account records, the transfers, the proof of everything he'd done. I didn't flinch. I signed the necessary affidavits with him beside me, and as I watched him write, shoulders hunched like a boy doing homework he hated, I realized something. Revenge isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's revelation. Sometimes justice looks like truth finally spoken aloud. Still, the quiet after the storm can be cruel. Around midnight, Marcus went to bed. I stayed in the living room, the lamp throwing soft light across the couch. I looked at the photographs on the wall, Marcus in his cap and gown, Amanda's forced smile beside him, me standing tall between them, proud and oblivious. I whispered, "You fool," not with anger, but with pity, for the man I'd been, for the man I still was. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You think it's over? It's not. Check your porch." My stomach tightened. I walked slowly to the door, careful, listening. The porch light flickered once, then steadied. There was a package on the step, a small cardboard box, plain, unmarked. I looked around. The street was empty, quiet, except for the chirp of crickets and the hum of a distant car. I brought the box inside, set it on the table, and opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph. Me, asleep in my recliner, taken through the living room window. The timestamp was 2 nights ago. Beneath it, a note written in neat, looping cursive, "You ruined my life, so I'll make sure you never rest easy again." No signature, but I didn't need one. Amanda. For the first time since this began, I felt something close to fear, not because of the threat, but because of how calm I still felt reading it, like part of me had expected this, like I knew the story wasn't finished yet. I folded the note and slid it into the folder with the rest of the evidence. Then I locked the front door, turned off the light, and sat down in the dark. The moonlight came through the window, silver on the hardwood floor. I thought about all the lessons I'd given over the years, about character, choices, integrity, how easy it was to teach those things when life obeyed the rules. But life doesn't obey. It tests, it bends, and sometimes it breaks you just to see what you'll do next. As the house creaked and the night deepened, I whispered to myself, "This isn't over, not until I end it the right way." Because revenge, I realized, isn't about destroying someone else. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself they tried to steal. And before this was done, Amanda was going to learn what that really meant. I didn't sleep that night. The photo on the table glared at me in the dark like a memory that refused to shut its eyes. I sat there for hours, the tick of the clock my only company, replaying every second since the morning I'd heard Amanda whisper about getting rid of me. That phrase used to mean one thing. Now, it meant another. She was out there somewhere, angry, humiliated, unpredictable, and the line between vengeance and madness is thinner than a blade of grass. At sunrise, I stood on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the street. A jogger passed. A garbage truck clanked and groaned its way down the block. The world was going on, indifferent to the private wars waged behind closed doors. I called Chief Lyle first. He picked up on the second ring. "Morning, Mr. Whitmore. You all right? Physically?" "Yes," I said, "but I just received another message from Amanda." He didn't sound surprised. "Threats? Not words. Pictures. Someone took a photo through my window. I'll send a unit by to check for prints and camera placement. You should stay somewhere else tonight." "I won't," I said simply. "I'm done running from the ghosts I raised." He sighed. "Then keep your doors locked. And on Clarence, don't do anything I'd have to explain later. Wouldn't dream of it." But that wasn't entirely true. When I hung up, I called Bernard, the private investigator. He answered with his usual dry humor. "You sound like a man who just remembered where he put his hammer." "Close enough," I said. "I need to know where Amanda is, and I need to know today. You want the fast way or the quiet way?" "Quiet," I said. "Always quiet." He chuckled softly. "Then give me 3 hours." While I waited, I busied myself with meaningless tasks, washing dishes that were already clean, wiping counters that didn't need it, adjusting picture frames on the wall. The mind likes order when the world starts to slip. Marcus came downstairs mid-morning, his face drawn, his tie loose. He stopped when he saw me standing at the window. "Dad," he said carefully, "I saw the box. So you know she's watching?" He nodded. "What do we do?" I said, "Go to work. Pretend everything's normal. Let her think she still holds the last move. And you? I'll take care of the rest." He hesitated. "I don't like leaving you here alone. You won't be gone long." He studied me for a moment. "You have that look again, the one you used to get before expelling a kid." I smiled faintly. "Some lessons require consequences." He sighed, picked up his briefcase, and left. 2 hours later, Bernard called. "Got her," he said. "Checked local motels. She's staying at the Bayview Inn off Route 9, room 112. Paid cash. Been there since last night. Alone. Any sign of company?" "No, but she rented a car this morning. Nissan Altima. Silver. Registered under a fake name. Diana Chase. She's angry. Clarence, you don't hide under an alias, unless you're planning to strike back. I figured as much. Want me to keep a tail? Yes, I said, but at a distance. Don't spook her. I'll handle the confrontation myself. Bernard was quiet for a moment. You sure about that? I'm sure. He sighed. You always were a stubborn bastard. Call me if she gets close. When I hung up, I went to my study and pulled out a small wooden box I hadn't opened in years. Inside was an old silver watch, my father's. He'd worn it through decades of back-breaking work in the rail yards, until it stopped one day at 3:47 p.m., the same hour he died. I never got it fixed. I kept it as a reminder that time can choose to stand still for you, or against you. I slipped it into my pocket. Today, I would need time to hold still. By early afternoon, I was in my car, heading down Route 9. The sky was a pale blue sheet stretched over the hills. The Bayview Inn appeared around a bend, a tired building with faded yellow paint and a sign that buzzed faintly, missing half its bulbs. Amanda's rental car sat in the far corner of the lot. I parked 3 spaces away, waited a moment, then stepped out. The gravel crunched under my shoes. I walked to her door and knocked twice. No answer. I knocked again. After a moment, the door opened just a crack. One sharp blue eye appeared through the gap. "Clarence," she said, voice low and cold, "you've got nerve showing up here." "I've got more than that," I said. "I've got unfinished business." She hesitated, then opened the door fully. The room behind her smelled like perfume and cigarette smoke. The curtains were drawn tight, the bed unmade. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the table beside an ashtray. "What do you want?" she asked. "Closure," I said, "and honesty." She laughed bitterly. "Honesty? You want me to confess while you sit there pretending you're some moral saint?" "I want the truth," I said simply. She paced the room, barefoot, the robe hanging loosely on her shoulders. "Fine. You want truth? Here it is. I loved Marcus once. Maybe I even loved you, for the stability, for the quiet strength, but living in your shadow was suffocating. Every time I walked into a room, you were already there, commanding respect just by breathing. I was never going to win. So yes, I took what I could, because this family owed me something for all the years I spent invisible. I studied her carefully. You weren't invisible, Amanda. You were seen. You just hated what we saw. She stopped pacing. Her eyes narrowed. You think you know me? You don't. I grew up with nothing, Clarence. Nothing. I married into your family to escape that, and for a while I did, but then you moved in and suddenly, I was back to being the guest again, the outsider. Is that why you tried to burn me alive? She flinched. That was a mistake. You lit the stove and tied the towel yourself. Her jaw set. You can't prove that in court. Maybe not, I said, but the fire marshal's report will speak loudly enough. She laughed again, sharp and joyless. You think they care about an old man's safety? This world rewards cunning, Clarence, not decency. Then consider this your reward, I said. You're free, free from us, from this family, from pretending to be someone you never were. She stared at me, suspicion flickering behind her eyes. Why are you really here? To offer you a chance to walk away clean. Her eyebrows rose. Walk away. From what? From the war you're trying to start, I said. The threats, the photos, the games. I already turned the message over to the police. They're watching you. But if you disappear, if you start over somewhere else, I'll make sure Marcus doesn't press charges. You can keep your name, your dignity, but you have to vanish. Amanda blinked, her lips parting slightly. You'd let me go? Yes, I said, because revenge is easy. Mercy takes more strength than fire. She looked at me like I was speaking a language she'd forgotten. Then her eyes hardened again. You're lying. I don't lie, I said. Not anymore. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned away, staring at the wall. You know what the worst part is? She said finally. You still think you're saving everyone. I stepped closer, stopping just short of her shadow. No, I'm saving myself. When I left the motel, I didn't look back. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, Bernard called again. She checked out an hour after you left, he said. Took the highway south. I'll keep an eye out, but I think she's gone for good. Thank you, I said. Be careful, Clarence. People like her don't just disappear. They look for cracks to crawl back through. I'll seal everyone, I said. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Quiet, not peace exactly, but the kind of stillness that comes after a storm passes, and the world waits to see what's left standing. Marcus came home late. He looked better, tired, but lighter. She called me, he said. Said she's leaving town. I know. She said you met her. I did. What did you tell her? The truth. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. Thank you. For what? For not turning me into her. I smiled faintly. You're my son. You still have time to be better. He sat across from me, rubbing his hands together. The firm's letting me take a leave of absence. They want me to get counseling. I'm thinking about it. That's good, I said. You need to rebuild from the inside out. He looked down. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, I said, but I'm giving it anyway. For the first time in months, I saw something alive in his eyes again. Hope, fragile and new. We sat in silence for a long time. The only sound was the steady ticking of my father's old watch, still frozen at 3:47, but somehow keeping time in its own way. Later that night, when Marcus went upstairs, I stood by the window staring out at the quiet street. The moon hung low and bright, the way it does in the south when the air still carries a trace of summer. I thought about Amanda, somewhere on a highway, chasing a new life that would crumble just like the last. I thought about Marcus, trying to stitch himself back together, and I thought about myself, an old man finally learning the difference between justice and peace. But just as I began to let the calm settle, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Clarence Whitmore? A woman's voice asked. Yes, this is Hannah Corder. We've received notice of a new transfer attempt. Someone tried to move the remaining house funds out of the frozen account about an hour ago. My chest tightened. From where? Remote login. Same username credentials as before, but the IP trace doesn't match Amanda's location. Whose, young then? She paused. Your son's. The words landed heavy, colder than the night air through the window. Are you sure? I asked quietly. Positive. We've already blocked the attempt, but I thought you should know. I thanked her, hung up, and stood there for a long time, staring at my own reflection in the glass. Marcus had promised me truth. He'd sat at this very table and sworn to rebuild. And still, something inside him couldn't stop reaching for what wasn't his. Maybe it was fear, maybe habit, maybe a sickness he hadn't yet learned how to cure. I went upstairs. His door was slightly ajar, light spilling out into the hallway. He was asleep on the bed, the glow of his laptop still open beside him. I walked over, careful not to wake him, and looked at the screen. The browser showed his email, draft unsent, subject line empty. In the body, only one line was written. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. My throat tightened. I closed the laptop gently, then looked at my son, the man who'd once been a boy running through sprinklers in our backyard, chasing the summer light like it would never end. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost himself, and as I stood there, I realized revenge had burned itself out inside me. What was left wasn't anger, it was grief. I turned off the light, closed the door softly, and went back downstairs. Tomorrow, I would tell the police everything, the transfers, the truth, even Marcus's attempt to take what wasn't his, not to punish him, but to save him the only way I still could. Because silence, I'd learned, can protect the guilty, but truth protects the soul, and if I wanted mine to rest before I died, I'd have to speak it all. Still, as the clock ticked and the house slept, one question lingered in the dark. Could a man ever truly forgive his own blood? I didn't have the answer yet, but by dawn, I knew I'd find out. I woke before sunrise, knowing it was time to stop hiding behind silence. I dressed, slipped my father's stopped watch into my pocket, and left Marcus a note. Meet me at the church at 9. Bring your courage. At the service, Pastor Green stepped aside and let me speak. I stood before the congregation and told the truth about the betrayal, the fire, the stolen money, the lies that tried to erase me. Then I looked at my son. Marcus, I said, the truth belongs to both of us. He rose and walked to the front. His voice shook, but his words didn't. I stole from my father. I hid it behind good intentions. I let my wife destroy what was left. I deserve the consequences. For a long moment, the room held its breath. Then Mrs. Ellison whispered, Amen, and the sound grew until the whole church was humming with forgiveness. Pastor Green said, Grace doesn't excuse, it rebuilds. Afterward, the police chief met us at the door. Marcus agreed to cooperate, to make restitution, to face whatever the law required. I wasn't proud. I was relieved, because truth, even when it burns, leaves light behind. That week, Amanda was arrested 2 counties away, caught trying to flee. She didn't fight. Marcus came clean to his firm. They suspended him but offered a path back. The law took its course, and for once, I didn't have to fight it. I went back to living. I repainted the kitchen, replaced the burnt cabinet, and planted a small rubber plant on the windowsill. A good, stubborn plant, hard to kill. One morning, Marcus asked, What now? I'm going to buy a small house, I said. Make coffee on a porch that faces the sunrise. Teach a boy down the street how to tie a tie. Live quiet and honest. He smiled. And me. You'll learn how to be honest when no one's watching. Later, I took my father's watch to the jeweler. She looked at it through her magnifier and said, "Everything that's meant to move can move again. Sometimes you just have to clear what's stuck." I left it there, knowing she was right, not just about the watch, but about me. Now the house feels peaceful again. No fear, no fire, just quiet mornings, a growing plant, and a son trying to become a better man. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me where you're watching from, your city and your state. I read every comment, every story, and if you believe, like I do, that dignity can survive any storm, subscribe and stay. There are more stories to tell, of men who refuse to disappear, and of the time that starts again after the flames die out. Because revenge isn't about destruction, it's about reclaiming yourself. And that's exactly what I did.